Alright, episode 30. Today, the topic of discussion is Serie A. Where it is, how it's got here, and where can it go from here. And I think the most important point, the thing that prefaces the entire discussion is, and I think a mistake that most people, including sometimes myself, make when discussing the league. We have to understand, as a collective, the Premier League is Usain Bolt. You see that guy? That's the second fastest man to have ever lived. Only one other person has ever ran faster than him. And it's that guy. And look at the gap. That's the Premier League. The Premier League is a behemoth. And with the new 7.8 billion, with a B, euro deal that they just signed for just their domestic rights from 2025 to 2029, they're untouchable. They are flat out simply untouchable. And not just for Italian football, for all of Europe. For all of football in general. They are untouchable. A better, more constructive way of discussing Italian football is by focusing on its greatest enemy, itself. Serie A is not competing against the Premier League. It's competing against itself, against what it used to be. And this is a stat that I found that really genuinely shocked me. Between 2009 and 2019, so that's 10 years, between 2009 and 2019, Serie A's TV revenue fell 8%. Do you understand how hard it is for TV revenue to drop in a decade period with inflation? Do you understand how difficult that is? It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible, but I'm going to break down to you how it happened. Now, Italy's new domestic deal will pay them out 900 million euros a year. That's their broadcasting rights in Italy. And Serie A's chiefs are very quick to point out, La Liga, they only got a 1% improvement on their last deal. And the Bundesliga had a 5% decrease on their last deal. So we're not alone. Everybody's dealing with it. And I agree to a certain extent. Football TV rights are a bubble. And I do think even the Premier League will eventually feel the pain of that. But what they don't want to tell you and what they don't want you to focus on is this. Fundamentally, do you know how difficult it is to be that far behind the Bundesliga in international revenue? The Bundesliga is not this ginormous league outside of Germany. To be that far behind them, that in itself shows a level of incompetence that you genuinely, when I'm researching this, it's hard to comprehend. You struggle to believe it. Just in the past month, Serie A has already been showcasing what an absolute clown show it is. They failed to have a broadcaster ready for major regions such as India, Australia, Sweden, Indonesia. All these regions had no broadcaster until genuinely a few days before the season started. And when they finally did get broadcasters, most of them were put on random websites, random broadcasters that didn't have a big existing base, all these kind of things. TNT now in England, one of the biggest Serie A watching countries or regions in Europe, now only going to show 2 games a week on broadcast, and the rest of it is going to be on something called One Football. But if there's anything, seriously, if there's anything to showcase the sheer incompetence, this is like the story that really got me going into this. If there's anything to showcase the incompetence, it's the MENA deal. That's the Middle East, North Africa. From 2019 to 2022, beIN Sports had a huge deal with Serie A, broadcasting the league all over the world. Right? In multiple different regions. That huge deal for 500 million euros a year, that accounted for over half of Serie A's international broadcasting revenue. But even if you want to break it down just to the MENA subsection, that was worth 112 million euros a year. 112 million euros a year. So for those that don't know, beIN Sports is the premier sports broadcaster in the region. Okay? beIN Sports has all the best leagues and all the best sports. It has the Premier League, La Liga, the Bundesliga, French League, basketball, tennis, everything. Every worthwhile event is on beIN Sports. So that's where you want to be. Because even if somebody's not a diehard Serie A fan, they might still have beIN Sports. Somebody's a football fan, they might still have beIN Sports. And they might just so happen to watch your games. And they might just so happen to be interested in a league. For more context, beIN Sports is Qatari owned. And due to a diplomatic dispute between Qatar and Saudi Arabia ended up banning beIN Sports in 2017. And then creating a channel called Be Out, which basically just pirated beIN Sports. Now, this wasn't a problem for Serie A until the Morons in charge signed a deal in 2019 to host the Italian Super Cup in Saudi. An 8 million euro deal. 8 million euros per year. That was the deal for the Super Cup. Now, this outraged BN, and they basically stopped broadcasting the league for a couple of weeks. Then they came back and they fulfilled the contract, but ultimately they said we would no longer be dealing with Serie A. We're not extending the rights. We're not dealing with you. So automatically, instead, you have an 8 million euro deal to host the Italian Super Cup, a one-match event in Saudi for 8 million euros. At stake, you have your 112 million euro deal just in the Middle East. 500 million euros overall in multiple regions. More than half of your international broadcasting revenue in one broadcaster. And you risk pissing them off for one game and 8 million euros a year. That's the context, right? Okay. Well, what would you say? Of course, they need to renege on the Saudi deal. They need to find I don't know what they need to do, but they need to figure out a way, right? Wrong. Serie A's directors double down, say we can't go back on the deal, extend the Super Cup deal with Saudi, expanding it to 24 million euros a year, all the way to 2028, from 2022 to 2028, and completely losing all business with beIN Sports. Then they had to put the league on something called Abu Dhabi Sports, which nobody has. Nobody had Abu Dhabi Sports, which meant you had to be a fucking Serie A diehard to go buy that shit, which means nobody would ever stumble on your product. You had to already be a Serie A fan to go get that. And they did it for 25 million euros a year, plus 5 million depending on audience-based bonuses. Okay? So the most they can get out of that deal is 30 million euros a year, contrasted to the 112 million euros they were getting from beIN Sports. And to be fair, of course, we have to factor the 24 million they're making from the Super Cup deal. That's the opportunity cost, right? So they chose a maximum total of 54 million euros over the guaranteed 112 million that they had with beIN Sports. And even putting the money aside, they also sacrificed the future growth of the league because, like I said, nobody would ever find Serie A again by accident. You had to be very specific in wanting to get to watch the league, to get Abu Dhabi Sports. And all of this is in possibly the biggest market for Italian football outside of Italy. That's what they sacrificed. That's the level of incompetence. And that's how we get this graph where they're this far below the Bundesliga. These kind of deals. I'll tell you what the solution is, and it's a simple solution. The simple solution is accept, acknowledge, and understand that you're already losing the money. The money's gone. You've basically, with the unbelievable mismanagement that has been showcased in the past 10 years, the money is gone. Nobody wants the fucking product, even though Serie A is a better product today than it was 10 years ago. Nobody fucking wants it. Not at the prices and not to deal with these people. Okay? So here's what you need to do. You need to sell the rights for a nickel. Give it up to anybody. But give it up to the right broadcasters. Put the games on the biggest broadcasters. The ones that carry the Premier League and carry La Liga. Piggyback off of those leagues. Build yourself up again. And then, maybe in 2 to 3 cycles from now, 5 to 6 or 7 years from now, maybe then you can recoup some of that money. Maybe then you can have something positive. But if you're already losing the money now and you're putting the games on on things like One Football, you're already losing the money. You might as well just give it up for less money, give the rights up for less money and get some publicity, get some notoriety. Put some juice in the product again. And I don't want to make this whole thing just about the money. Because the other component of Serie A's downfall is the Three Stooges. You have broke and ambitious. You have rich and unambitious. And of course you have ambitious and dumb. Serie A will never be back to where, again, when I say back, I don't care about competing with the Premier League. I don't care about competing with La Liga. I'm talking about Serie A will never be back to competing for the top players and for the Champions League. Serie A will never be back into that level until these 3 teams actually get their shit together. And I don't care if it pisses off Roma or Napoli fans. I'm sorry, but it's the fact of the matter. And the most damning point is that the Juve of that era, of the 2011 to 2020 era. That Juve already showcased that irrespective of the financial realities of Serie A, irrespective of the financial mismanagement that La Ligue showcases, irrespective of the terrible TV deals, the terrible stadiums, irrespective of all of that, you can still build a competitive team. A team that wins and competes for all the trophies, and that plays an attractive football, and that has a style and identity. And yet, here we are today in 2024, none of these teams seem likely to do it again. The frustrating part about all of this is that I just genuinely don't trust either of the three teams to actually put up and shut up and really build that contender that the league is it's crying out for.